Okay, I am standing in the driveway, so I'm facing west. Okay. Your condensing units, the condensing units to this house, are the first condensing unit closest to the house and the one on the end. So it really doesn't matter which way you're facing, but just so that you have some orientation. This half of the duplex gets the two end condensing units. You can see that the two middle condensing units here appear quite a bit more recent than these. That's called a clue. Okay, these units are they are identical. Now they're rated for between, my notes out here so I don't bend down all the time, between 25 and 40 amps. And then here on the electric service panel inside the garage east wall, we see that we've got our air conditioners and they're rated at 30 amps. Okay, that's between 25 and 40. The manufacturer likes to see the largest rated breaker. That's what they actually recommend, even though the condensing units are rated for, they have a bracket. Now, usually I like to say that the condensing units were properly fused, but I'm not going to say that because the manufacturer, again, would rather see a 40 than a 30 amp breaker. That being said, apparently they've been working. That being said, these guys are old and it's time to replace them. When these guys are replaced, the circuit breaker requirements are going to be, the units are going to be more efficient and the requirements are going to be lower than these requirements. So if you put new breakers in here for those old condensing units and then you replace them pretty soon, then you're going to be replacing the breakers again. So you might just kind of, I don't know, it's a business decision. These are the electric service disconnects for each unit. This is number one. Excuse me. And number one goes all the way down to the end. That's number one, and this is number two. And the disconnect boxes are sealed, and it looks like, I took still images of this. I'll study this when I get home. But it looks like the disconnect boxes were laced up pretty good. Now, and, I don't know how we're going to go about this. All right. So, and I hate apologizing for my work, but sometimes we're just kind of explaining real life situations here. These disconnects are not supposed to be behind the unit, but there's really isn't any wall to put them on, and you can reach them from like this 45-degree angle here, and they, to me they're not obstructed, but they're not supposed to be behind the unit. So we're getting a lot of that going on. This is the data plate for number two. And number two and number one's data plates are just about identical. Again, like there's going to be some redundancy between these two units. Not improperly fused. Okay, these units are 17 years old. 17 years old. Were engineered on paper to last 20. They might last 35. But they could have died yesterday. They can die tomorrow. Las Vegas odds are 14 years in this part of the country for this type of equipment. 14 years. 17 years old. This equipment has done just about everything anybody would expect it to have been to do. So they have served a nice long useful life, but it would be prudent to budget for replacement. These units have R22 refrigerant in them. Okay, so R22 is not very efficient in the first place. R22 is no longer manufactured in the United States, is no longer imported in the United States legally. Are there stockpiles of it? You bet there are. Is it expensive? It's expensive, all right, so we've got to, just about, based on its age in R22, just about any technician that comes out here to service these units is going to rightfully so suggest that maybe it's time to update these things. Maybe you don't want to be working on them all the time. Maybe you don't want that expensive R22. Do they sell drop-ins? Substitute alternative refrigerants? Yes, they sure do. Are they expensive? Yeah, they're expensive too. Well, are they more efficient? I read where one of them might be, but no, they're actually 20% less efficient. And by this being 17 years old from 2005, this is probably a SEER 10. These are SEER 14, these newer ones. And you put a less efficient refrigerant in this, and then what's that going to do for you? I'm not going to say it's not going to cool for you, but how long does it have to run to make you comfortable? How much money do you have to spend to reach that level of comfort? So these might not be the most efficient, and for sure they're going to be the most problematic. Now, these weren't required when the dirty coils on both of them. These weren't required when this home was built. You see this foam, this insulating foam? It's no longer acceptable. I still see it. It's no longer acceptable. It gets dry, it cracks, it comes back away from the wall. It does all those things. You know, there's a new, more durable insulating foam that's now being used, and that actually covers that go over it, and that's not it. So we got the wrong kind of foam. It's an energy consideration, so it's going to make the report. See these valve caps right here? Those are called Schrader valve caps. Look that up in the dictionary. That's your refrigerant, piping, service, valve, port, cap. Schrader valve cap. And today, these would be anti-theft. It would look more like this one over here. That's the foam that we're looking for. Those are the caps that we're looking for. Didn't have it back in 2005, excuse me. Didn't have it that far back. So, what did we learn? We learned that our units are old, that they use R22. We learned that the coils are dirty. We learned that the disconnect is behind them. We learned we got the wrong kind of foam by today's standards. We have the wrong type of Schrader valve caps by today's standards. And again, 17 years old, it's my professional opinion that it'd be prudent to budget for replacement. I cannot call that a deficiency because it's R22. Texas Real Estate Commission doesn't care about that. Is it performing the function for which it's intended? I can't call it deficient because it's old, because, old equipment works. Is it performing the function for which it's intended? We're going to find out about that. But as a consumer, you might want to know about the age. As a consumer, you might want to know about the R22.